The train screeched into Prague under a veil of morning mist. Anna pressed her forehead against the cold glass and tried to catch the first glimpse of the city she had dreamed about for years. Towers rose like blackened fingers from the fog, spires cutting into a pale sky that still carried the last blush of dawn. She stepped onto the platform with her sketchbook clutched tightly against her chest. The station smelled of coffee, iron, and rain, a heady mix that made her pulse quicken. Here it was, the city of alchemists, of whispered legends, of painters who had turned shadows into light. But could it become her city too? She spent the morning wandering the narrow streets of the old town. The cobblestones seemed alive, uneven under her boots, whispering to her in an ancient tongue. Cafes spilled warmth into the cold air. Musicians played snatches of jazz in hidden courtyards. And every turn revealed a new secret, a carved lion above a doorway, a mural fading into stone, an alley that curved into nothingness at last. Her footsteps carried her to the Charles Bridge. The stones beneath her feet were slick with dew, worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims, lovers, and wanderers who had all sought something here. Statues loomed overhead like silent guardians. She raised her pencil to capture the silhouettes when suddenly a sound shattered the stillness. The violin. Not polite, not cautious, but raw, fiery, aching. The melody soared through the mist like a cry of defiance, like someone trying to set the morning ablaze. She turned out. He stood near the railing, hair dark and unruly, his body bent over the instrument as if it were both a weapon and a lover. A crowd had gathered, drawn helplessly by the music. But Anna didn't see them. She saw only him. When the last note quivered and died, he lifted his gaze. Their eyes met. For an instant, the city fell away, leaving only the pull of something dangerous and magnetic. That he smiled faintly. "You draw the sound," he said, noticing her sketch. His voice carried the faintest French accent. "And you set the air on fire," Anna replied before she could stop herself. His laughter was low, warm, unsettling. "Then perhaps we are colleagues already." The following day, Anna wandered through the old town as if in a dream. The city was a labyrinth of angles and whispers, crooked alleys spilling suddenly into grand squares, doorways so narrow they seemed designed for secrets rather than people, towers that seemed to lean down to listen. Everywhere she turned, the city challenged her to notice more. Her footsteps carried her to the Clementinum, the sprawling former Jesuit complex that held one of the most celebrated libraries in the world. She had read about it in her student days, imagining the smell of parchment and dust, the golden globes, the frescoed ceilings that seemed painted by hands guided not by man, but by divinity. Inside, the hush was cathedral-like. The very air seemed fragile. Anna traced her fingers along a carved banister, her heart thrumming as though she were trespassing into a living organism. Careful. The voice was deep, quiet, yet firm enough to startle her. She turned sharply. A man stood partly in shadow, dressed plainly, but with an elegance that didn't need display. His hair was dark chestnut, his eyes the color of wet stone, sharp yet watchful. In one hand, he carried a roll of architectural sketches. The other rested easily in his coat pocket. "This floor," he said, nodding to the planks beneath her feet, "has held more centuries than your country has years. Tread gently." Anna blinked, half amused, half embarrassed. "I wasn't stomping," she murmured. He studied her, not with the fire of the violinist from yesterday, but with a scrutiny that felt almost heavier. Where David had burned, this man seemed built of stone. "You're not a tourist," he said finally. It wasn't a question. "I'm here for the residency," Anna explained. "Painting. Inspiration." Something shifted in his expression, a flicker of respect, though veiled. "I am Tomas," he said, offering the faintest inclination of his head. "Architect. Keeper of ruins, some might say, and of Other things. Before she could ask what those other things were, he gestured for her to follow. Reluctantly, curiosity tugging at her, she did. He led her through a side door, down a corridor most visitors would never see, and into a chamber where maps were spread across a great oak table. By lamplight, the city unfurled in layers: rooftops, tunnels, aqueducts, forgotten passages. This, Tomas said, touching a yellowed sheet with reverence, is the Prague no one photographs. Beneath the cobblestones lie tunnels older than memory. Entire worlds under the feet of people who will never know they exist. Anna leaned closer. Her heart tripped at the thought. Secret veins running through the city, hidden, alive. And you? Map them. I guard them. He replied simply. She studied him. There was something almost priestly in the way he handled the parchment, as though the paper itself were sacred. But then, his eyes lifted to hers, and the weight of his gaze pinned her. For a brief, startling moment, she felt as though she too were a map, and he was deciphering the passages she would rather leave unexplored. She broke eye contact first. I should go, she said, though she wasn't certain why. Tomas inclined his head again, neither pressing her to stay nor letting her go without a final word. Prague, he murmured, does not easily release what it claims. Outside, the bells tolled noon. Anna stepped back into the bustle of the streets, her pulse quickened by something she couldn't name. Yesterday, the violinist's music had set her blood aflame. Today, the architect's silence unsettled her in a different way. Prague was no longer just a city. It was a living riddle, and she was caught inside it. Evenings in Prague belonged to the musicians. Lanterns flickered along the narrow streets, and the air filled with notes that seemed born of both joy and sorrow. Anna had wandered into the square near Old Town Hall where David was playing once again, his violin blazing under the gaze of the astronomical clock. This time, she didn't hide in the crowd. She stood at the front, sketchbook in hand, daring to draw him as he played. Each stroke of her pencil tried to capture what seemed impossible: the bend of his body, the wildness in his hair, the flame in his expression. When he finished, people clapped, coins clattered into his case. And David bowed carelessly, eyes already searching for her. You came back, he said, grinning as if he'd expected nothing less. I didn't promise I wouldn't, Anna replied. He tucked the violin under his arm and leaned close. Then tonight, you'll join me. There's a place only the city's true children know. Before she could answer, he had already taken her hand, pulling her through twisting alleys until the noise of the square was left behind. They arrived at a hidden cafe, dim and smoky, where artists and wanderers crowded into corners. Musicians argued about tempo, poets scribbled on napkins, painters gestured wildly with ink-stained hands. This, David said proudly, is the real heart of Prague. She felt it instantly, the pulse of creation, reckless and alive. The night stretched around them like spilled wine. David played again, this time not for coins but for the thrill of it, his bow carving fire into the air. When their eyes met across the table, she felt it, the pull of someone who lived without restraint. Yet even as the music shook her, she remembered Tomas, the memory of his quiet gaze, the gravity in his words. David was fire, dazzling and dangerous. Tomas was stone, steady and implacable. And she was caught between them, an artist searching for a shape that might hold both. Days passed in a blur of color and sound. By morning, Anna painted in her tiny attic studio, her canvases filling with fragments of the city, the curve of bridges, the gold of domes, the shadowed alleys. By afternoon, she walked with Tomas, who revealed the city's hidden bones. He showed her courtyards no tourist found, walls etched with forgotten names, doors that opened only with the right whisper point. One evening, he led her into an underground chamber where dripping water echoed off stone walls. The air smelled of damp earth and secrets, This was once a hiding place, Tomas explained softly. For those who feared the empire, the wars, the shadows above. Whole families survived down here. Anna shivered, tracing her fingers along the rough wall. And you? Why guard it? He hesitated before answering. Because the city deserves its memory. Without memory, even stone crumbles. She studied him, sensing the depth of a man who bore more than he admitted. In the hush of the tunnels, their closeness felt inevitable. His hand brushed hers, not demanding, not fiery, but steady, anchoring. For a moment, she wondered what it might mean to belong to someone like him. But then David's laughter rang in her mind. His music still alive in her veins, she pulled back. I need air. Tomas's expression did not change, but his eyes revealed something unspoken, a wound opening silently. Back on the surface, the city was alive with festival lights. Anna hurried to the square, where music surged like a tide. David spotted her immediately, beckoning her into the whirl of dancing bodies. He spun her beneath lanterns, his grip fierce, his energy intoxicating. You think too much, he shouted above the music. And you not enough, she shot back, though she laughed. When the song ended, he drew her close, lips brushing her ear. Let me show you what it means to stop thinking. The kiss came before she could protest, urgent, hungry, fire-consuming oxygen. The crowd cheered around them as if they were part of the performance. For an instant, Anna surrendered. Heat coursed through her, the taste of wine and smoke on his mouth. But then, almost as suddenly, she pulled away, her chest heaving. I can't. David's grin faltered, frustration flashing in his eyes. Can't. Or won't. She had no answer. She fled into the night, the city spinning around her like a carousel of shadows and light. The following morning, Anna sat in her studio, staring at a blank canvas. Her hands trembled. The city had seeped into her veins, but so had the men, opposites, yet both irresistible. A knock startled her. It was Valentina, the sharp-eyed journalist who had joined them at the cafe. You look like you've seen a ghost, Valentina remarked, stepping inside without invitation. Or perhaps two. Anna frowned. I don't know what you mean. Valentina smirked, flipping open a notebook. The fiery musician. The brooding architect. It's all too delicious. Readers would devour it. You wouldn't dare, Anna snapped. Wouldn't I? Valentina's smile was wolfish. Prague eats stories, and yours is practically begging to be told. When she finally left, Anna sank into a chair, dread coiling in her stomach. The city was closing in, twisting her heart into a puzzle she didn't know how to solve. Part 4. Breaking points. The storm came 3 nights later. Rain hammered the rooftops. The Vltava swelled with fury, and thunder rolled like war drums across the sky. Anna had taken refuge in the cafe, hoping to sketch by candlelight. But David was already there, his violin case beside him, eyes dark with unspoken battles. You run from me, he said without preamble. I'm not. Yes, you are. His voice rose, passion flaring even without his bow. You feel the fire. I see it in you. Why deny it? Her breath caught. The truth was dangerous. She wanted him. The music, the madness, the blaze. But she also feared it would consume her. Before she could respond, the door opened, and Tomas entered, rain dripping from his coat. His gaze swept the room, landed on her, and then on David. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one inside. You should leave her be, Tomas said quietly. But with steel in his tone, David stood, the tension electric. And you think you're her savior? With your stones and secrets? At least I give her life. At least I give her ground to stand on. Tomas retorted, and his voice broke through, sharp with desperation. Stop, both of you. But the damage was done. 2 forces had collided, and she was the battlefield. She ran into the rain, heart pounding, unsure whether she fled from them or from herself. The rain refused to stop. It hammered the streets, turning cobblestones slick and shining, swelling the Vltava until it licked at the stone feet of the Charles Bridge. Anna found herself drawn there, umbrella forgotten, soaked through. Her sketchbook clutched to her chest. The statues loomed above her. Silent saints watching with cold stone eyes as her thoughts twisted like the storm itself. She heard footsteps before she saw him. Tomas emerged from the curtain of rain, tall and somber, his coat dark and heavy. "You'll catch your death," he said softly, moving closer. "Maybe that would be easier," she whispered, surprising herself. His jaw tightened. "Don't talk like that." She looked up at him, raindrops clinging to her lashes. "I can't do this. I can't choose between you and David." "You're both," she faltered, words drowned by thunder. Tomas reached for her hand, gripping it with quiet strength. "You don't have to choose tonight. Just let me stay with you. Let me be the one who stands beside you, even in the rain." For a moment, she leaned into him, his steadiness a shield against the storm. His presence wrapped around her like stone walls, cold but protective. Then, from the other end of the bridge, a sound cut through the storm. Music. The unmistakable cry of a violin, fierce and defiant. "David," Anna froze. The bridge had become an arena. David stood under a lantern, hair plastered to his face, bow slicing across strings like a sword. The music rose above the storm, a challenge and a confession all at once. His eyes never left her. "Anna," he shouted, his voice hoarse. "Come to me." Her heart split. Tomas held her hand like an anchor, but David's music pulled like a tide. Fire and stone, passion and safety, chaos and order, all tearing her in two that she couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. The storm raged on. The following morning, Prague was hushed under mist. The storm had passed, leaving streets washed clean, but the silence felt heavy. Anna wandered aimlessly, exhaustion gnawing at her. Every corner whispered of one man or the other. The cafe reminded her of David's wild laugh, the tunnels of Tomas's steady hand. She found herself at Valentina's office, almost without realizing. The journalist opened the door with a sly smile. "You look like a woman at war," Valentina observed. "I don't want a war," Anna said, her voice raw. "Wars don't ask what you want," Valentina replied, pouring 2 cups of bitter coffee. "But let me tell you something. Fire burns fast, but stone lasts. The question is, do you want to be consumed, or do you want to endure?" Anna stared into her cup, the steam curling upward like a ghost. She didn't answer. That evening, she painted furiously, canvases piling against the walls. The city spilled out of her in strokes of red and gray, flames and bridges, shadows and faces. She painted David's fire, Tomas's stone, the river's relentless current. She painted until her hands shook and her body ached. At last, she collapsed. The studio filled with fragments of her divided soul. Prague prepared for its annual festival of lights, when lanterns and candles transformed the city into a dreamscape. Streets filled with music, bridges with glowing crowds, and the river itself carried flickering lights downstream like drifting stars. Anna tried to avoid the festival, but fate had other plans. Friends from the cafe dragged her along, insisting she couldn't miss the city at its most alive. As night fell, the city shimmered. Lanterns floated upward into the black sky, glowing spheres against the darkness. The air buzzed with laughter, music, and the smell of roasted chestnuts. And there, amid the crowd, she saw them both. David, violin slung across his back, his eyes already burning for her. Tomas, standing near the edge of the bridge, watching with quiet intensity, her breath caught. It was as if the city itself had conspired to force her choice. David approached first, his energy magnetic. "Anna, dance with me. Just once. Tonight, when the city shines." Before she could answer, Tomas stepped forward. "Or walk with me. See the lanterns from the old tower. No noise, No chaos. Just us. The world spun. The crowd's cheers rose as lanterns ascended, filling the sky like 1,000 fiery souls. Anna felt the pull in both directions. Her heart screamed for David's fire, for the danger and the thrill of being consumed. But another part of her, quieter, deeper, longed for Tomas's steadiness, the promise of grounding, of building something that might last. Anna, David urged, voice fierce. Life is short. Burn with me. Anna, Tomas said softly. Life is long. Build with me. The lanterns rose higher. The city held its breath. Anna closed her eyes and chose. Anna stood on the bridge, the lanterns drifting skyward around her like floating stars. The air was thick with warmth, music, and the scent of roasted chestnuts. David's hand hovered near hers, a spark of daring in his eyes. Tomas's calm presence held her in a quiet gravity, steady as the stone beneath her feet. She could feel the pulse of the city beneath her, the heartbeat of Prague itself. Every light, every shadow, every echo of laughter seemed to whisper, choose. Or don't. David smiled, a reckless, almost desperate grin. One dance, he urged. Just one. And then, we see. Tomas's gaze was softer, but no less insistent. Walk with me to the old tower. Just for a moment. No crowds, no noise. Only us. Anna felt herself pulled in both directions. Fire and stone. Passion and safety. Chaos and quiet. She closed her eyes, letting the lantern's glow wash over her. And in that instant she realized she didn't need to rush a choice. Not yet. She opened her eyes. She began, but no words would come to David's bow hovered uncertainly. Tomas's hand twitched slightly, as if inviting but not demanding. The lanterns continued their slow ascent, filling the night sky with drifting flames. For a moment, time seemed to pause. The city held its breath with her. Anna stepped back from the brink, letting the two men stand there, waiting. She didn't take David's hand. She didn't follow Tomas toward the tower. Instead, she pulled her coat tighter and turned toward the river, letting the crowd and the lights carry her along. She walked slowly, absorbing everything. The music, the laughter, the scent of wet stone, the heat of lanterns reflected in the water. Both David and Tomas watched her go. Neither moved after her. They didn't need to. The choice, she realized, wasn't about one man or the other. Not tonight, not here. It was about herself, her own fire and her own stone, and the life she would build from that delicate balance. The lanterns floated higher, drifting toward the stars. Somewhere in the crowd, a violin cried out, and somewhere else, a soft voice whispered. The city was alive, and so was she. Anna didn't know what tomorrow would bring, and for the first time, that didn't scare her. She would choose in her own time. For now, she walked, letting Prague guide her, letting the lights guide her, letting herself simply be. The bridge loomed behind her, shadowed and silent, as if waiting. And above, the lanterns burned bright, their flickering flames echoing the question that would always follow her: fire or stone? The night held its breath, and so did she.